Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. Thank you for taking time to watch today. We have a Big Ten episode coming at you. We're going to discuss the major heavyweights of the Big Ten, the good, the bad, the ugly. Also discuss a massive Big Ten matchup this past weekend with the University of Michigan versus Southern California. That shaped up to be a great game. And so we're going to touch on many things Big Ten related. So if you're a Big Ten football fan, tune in. There's definitely going to be something that you like here. Jay, I know I kind of threw out Nebraska preemptively a couple of weeks ago when we hadn't even talked about them. So I'll kind of preemptively throw them out again here. Nebraska, you disappointed me. I wanted you to, kind of take that step and win a big game, and that would have been a big win against Illinois, but you didn't get to do it. So hopefully the Cornhuskers can rebound and continue to build a positive season over there in Lincoln. Rage, how you doing today? How has your week unfolded so far? Good, bad, indifferent?
Great question, Michael. I guess I would say indifferent, just preparing for all this rain that's about to hit me with the hurricane and everything, residuals.
And going to hit me all the way up here in Ohio. Can you believe that?
This thing's massive, man. I mean, I'm looking on TV and I know it's a category 4, but I know everyone always measures like wind, like miles per hour, but like what's like the largest like hurricane, like circumference wise, I wonder.
No, I don't know. I'm not a hurricane expert, even though I have lived through one when I lived in the state of Louisiana. Don't remember the name of it, but they were expecting it potentially to get very bad where we were there in Baton Rouge. Didn't end up getting too bad. Jay, true story. The whole neighborhood's power had gone out except a little cul-de-sac, and it went out for like 5-6 days. Well, I'm not from Louisiana. A lot of these people have generators because they're expecting their power to go out X amount of times. I'm not from Louisiana. I don't have a generator. The hurricane comes in. The winds were 60, 70 miles an hour. I mean, that was brisk. And one little cul-de-sac kept their power, and I was in that little cul-de-sac. So I was so grateful that we never had to experience the power outage in Louisiana like so many do. But yeah, that's my hurricane experience.
Interesting story, especially with generators, because I'm looking into getting a solar generator. If you know anything about those, I don't.
I mean, I know a little bit just from some guys that sell a bunch of solar stuff that I come into interactions with from time to time.
I'm looking into investing. I'm looking into investing in buying one because in the long run, it actually saves you money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael, rest in peace to the Oakland Athletics, man. I just wanted to get that off. I just saw the highlights, and it's really sad what has happened to that organization. And honestly, man, I mean, like off topic, I almost like wonder if the Reds need to move because they're a bunch of failures too, and I can't stand them. Maybe if they move, it will be out of my mind. It wasn't supposed to be funny.
Don't take the Reds. Don't take the Reds from us. The Reds got to stay here.
They depress me,
man.
I mean, they just lost to the Cleveland Indians.
True.
And I hate the Cleveland Indians every fiber.
I think this is 4 or 5 years in a row they've lost the Battle of Ohio.
Well, they didn't officially lose like the last 4 years. They actually tied, but the Ohio Cup stayed in Cleveland because I don't know what the rules are, but I guess like whoever
a tie doesn't get it back. Tie goes to the champ.
Exactly. So it's such bullshit, but whatever. I mean, it's not like the Reds have really won on the field against those evil fucks. Like, whatever, man.
At least you can win the stinking Ohio Cup back. I mean, good grief, you guys are not winning anything else. Can you not
just beat Cleveland? I don't care what really happens with the Reds. At least the last couple of years, just beat Cleveland. That's the only series I care about. And they can't even fucking do that.
Cleveland's a superior franchise. They have been for years. I hate to say it. There's no reason for it. They're just run better.
Yeah, man. So back to the Athletics. I think you said, have you been to Oakland for a game or I don't remember. Did you say
I have been out to several of those old California destinations. I was out at the old Anaheim Stadium, the Big A, where the Angels played. Boy, that place was interesting. But no, I never was to the old Oakland Coliseum to see a game in Oakland. I saw the Oakland A's in the Big A, but during the Bash Brother years, Canseco, McGuire, and they were playing in Anaheim that day against the Angels, and so that was a very cool experience, seeing those guys in their prime, basically. Monsters. So and monster teams the Oakland A's had there for a few years. Teams that were really unlike any other, electrifying teams. Canseco was kind of like the first rock star to ever enter Major League Baseball, and it kind of took things to a different level. And you had Ricky Henderson, with all his charismatic antics, and just a very cool team. And only ended up winning one World Series.
Red swept them.
Yeah, Red. They did. They sure did. And incidentally, I sat next to at a Cleveland Indians game the #1 Oakland A's fans in the world. He just got honored at the end of the season at their stadium. They had a whole night and they honored the guy. I sat next to him at a game in Cleveland. He goes to every away game. He travels all over the country and watches the Oakland A's. He stays in their hotel. And he could. My daughter was with me. He said, "You want some baseballs?" He starts yelling to the guys on the team out on the field. They look at him. He says, "Hey, throw me some balls." They go in the dugout and they throw him balls up. They just do whatever he says, because he's there every game. They all know him. And so I thought that was hilarious that he got honored. They did a big to-do at the game. And I sat right next to him and talked to him for about 3.5 hours in Cleveland one night.
Was that today at their last game he got honored, or is this like
I think this was actually last week when they honored him.
Poor guy. I know he's probably like sad beyond belief.
When we get off air here, Jay, I'll send you a picture of me and of me and him and my daughter.
Why is Oakland leaving? Exactly.
They had to have a new stadium, and the bottom line is the stadium, the area down there in Oakland, it just never seemed to get off the ground. The idea of investing billions of dollars into an area that is so crime ridden and so just really gone downhill. And not that it was rough in the 80s, but now it's just really a difficult place. And, you have the high California taxes. And so I'm sure Nevada offered whoever the owner of the Oakland A's is a nice corporate or some type of tax breaks to come into the state. And they're going to build them a big, new, beautiful, state-of-the-art stadium. So it was kind of a no-brainer for them, as sad as it is to see Oakland lose. It's equally as sad to see, what poor condition the city of Oakland has fallen into in recent years.
Never been there. I've never been to California. I definitely want to visit, but I definitely need to be, even now, careful exactly where you go. So, man, Las Vegas has taken 2 Oakland teams now.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Jay, he's a Hispanic guy from Oakland. He moved to Ohio 12 years ago. Now, all of his family is moving from Oakland to Ohio because they want to get out of Oakland. So yeah, it's he has been my kind of main source of information on how bad Oakland has gotten recently, because he lived there and his family still did up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Man, well, that's a political discussion there. But what's also really bad, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten football. Boy, oh boy, man, this conference fucking
come
sucks,
on, Jay.
man.
Come on, Rage. You got to have a little optimism. It's
optimism
early.
with what? This conference fucking sucks, man.
We're seeing some good signs.
What signs are that? Okay, like it's just across the conference, like a lack of speed, size, coaching, lack of the forward pass. I mean, like,
all those are areas that I 100% agree need to continue to improve in the Big Ten. However, we've got 3 top 10 teams, a couple of other teams, in the top 15, And I'm, it's 5 teams in the top 15, and we're talking about a down year in the Big Ten. This is a down year. Michigan's down, Washington's down. I don't know if Wisconsin's ever going to get back up. But at least having Michigan and Washington down are two, pretty big deals. And it's still right there solidly, obviously, behind the SEC.
Solidly is putting it kind. I would put them a couple miles behind the SEC, considering, like, I don't know. That's not a discussion. I'm not talking about the SEC right now. When I talk about the SEC, I get all depressed and pissed off. So let's avoid talking about those people down there or here where I'm at.
No, here's the thing. What I'm saying is, I don't know how far the Big Ten is behind the SEC. That's a different debate. But wherever that is, the next conference behind the Big Ten is a decent ways back as well. So the Big Ten is squarely in second place in this arms race right now. Not exactly where we want to be, but hopefully there's some more strategic moves to add some quality recruiting ground, quality revenue sharing, and quality football programs into it, and make it a real race, a real challenge of Big Ten versus SEC. I would love to see it turn into a AFC, NFC type of deal.
Well, yeah, no, that's exactly where it's going, and I don't agree with it. I don't want college football to be like the NFL, but everyone, this is going to be a loaded episode. We didn't cover the Big Ten last week due to technical errors, but we're going to make sure we cover last week's games and this week's games, because really, like, not this week's games, but this past weekend's games and then the weekend before that. So let's just start off with Wisconsin. You made mention of Wisconsin. I'll cover them real quick, and you can add in what you want. Just, what a disaster in every way possible. I know Luke Fickell is a former Buckeye, but seeing him coach in 2011 at Ohio State and coaching at Cincinnati in big games, his ceiling is really just Cincinnati. He should have stayed there, considering Ohio is close to home. Cincinnati is now in the Big 12. His coaching is just too conservative and makes some of the dumbest decisions in close games. Michael, for example, Wisconsin was dealt a terrible hand, losing Tyler Van Dyke in the first drive of the game and for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. But, that's kind of what you get when you settle for a quarterback with injury history. But they had a 4th and a half a yard on the second drive of the game, already up 3-0, and going in for more when they ran the ball from shotgun versus going under center and running a QB sneak. Like, guys, you are fucking Wisconsin. I would expect you to be able to get a half a yard against an SEC team. I don't care who the fuck it is. Get a half a yard when you're at home versus an SEC team. And they can't even do that. They can't do it out of the right fucking formation, Michael.
Yeah, Jay, first off, let me get to my thoughts on Luke Fickell. I think he just chose I don't think he is a great football coach by any means. So don't get me wrong. I don't want him to be the next coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I don't think he's that level of a coach. I do think he might be a top 15 type coach in the country. 1 second. My daughter is saying something. Okay. And so I think he could be like a top 15 coach in the country, because what he did do at Cincinnati was impressive. It didn't sell me that he was ready for to go home to Ohio State, and he's continued to not sell me that he's ready to go home to Ohio State, but he picked the wrong job. I mean, Luke should have gone to LSU. Luke should have gone to Oklahoma. I know Venables was probably in Oklahoma no matter what, but Luke should have gone to one of these schools where he could recruit talent quickly and get the type of football team that he wanted on the field. And he went to Wisconsin, that has always been in a talent deficit when you're talking about the top 10 teams in the country. And most of the time, they do occasionally have a legit top 10 team. And I wish they did more often again, but They do it in a particular way. And so he didn't have a tremendous amount of talent. And Wisconsin had benefited from being in the weak Big 12 West, where they were, easily able to pick up 9 or 10 wins a season over there. Those days are gone. Now they have to play everybody. Now they have a schedule where they have to play, potentially Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon all in the same season, along with some of the other ones, maybe even Penn State. So, I mean, you're talking about some really rough schedules that are now coming Wisconsin's way. And, Luke should have, I don't know. He just wanted to stay in the Big Ten, and that's admirable, but it wasn't a great landing spot.
I mean, maybe. I think I disagree, Michael. I think that Luke Fickell has done as well as you can recruiting Wisconsin, but the talent wasn't the problem. He just cannot call a game. He doesn't seem to have a feel for calling a football game offensively or defensively in his times at Cincinnati, Wisconsin. You can put all the talent in front of him, but eventually you're going to run into teams that have just as much talent. I don't care if he goes to LSU. I don't think he'd win there either, at least not in the way LSU fans would want him to win, because he hasn't won. I know he had that one great year at Cincinnati, but even in that semifinal game against Alabama, they played, they kind of played like Jim Knowles would call a defense. Like, I understand the Wisconsin talent isn't good, but you have to be able to maximize the players you do have. They are not doing that under Fickell. Honestly, Paul Chryst, their former head coach, much better coach. And I was calling for him to be fired right before they fired him. So what's that mean for Luke Fickell? I don't know. I don't really see much of a future there. I think they had a bad pick there. I think Luke Fickell needs to go to some kind of mid-major team that's his ceiling, and there's nothing really to add to Wisconsin other than that.
I mean, that certainly also is a possibility, and I'm not ruling that out. I just think that there is also a possibility that he is at least a pretty good football coach. But yeah, you got to be. He's got to be able to. He's got to find a formula. Barry Alvarez developed the Wisconsin formula, which is the big offensive lineman, get a good running back. A lot of times he got skill guys out of New Jersey, out of the Northeast. That was before New Jersey was a popular ground for the nation to pick, including Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. But he would get some athletes out of New Jersey. And, that was a formula that worked, maybe able to get some athletes out of Chicago as well. But, Luke is trying to change it. He's going away from that. He's trying to open up the offense into a more modernized offense. And he just doesn't have the personnel to do it. He's still got the old Wisconsin personnel, and he's not able to get that type of talent in quickly enough to have a quick turnaround. So if he is going to have a turnaround, Wisconsin's going to have to give him probably 4 or 5 years to really see if what his vision for the program is going to work or not. And do they have that kind of patience in Madison? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. Paul Chryst is better than him, man. Moving on to other teams, because we have a lot to touch on here. I know, like a couple weeks ago, Purdue, not much to say there. Despicable. I actually thought in my mind they were a dark horse to upset Notre Dame a few weeks ago, but after they lost to Northern Illinois, I went back on that some, but never would have expected them to lose at home 66-7. Like, Notre Dame's not that fucking good. Like, Purdue looks slow, small, bad coaching. Getting the guy from Illinois, the head, to be their head coach, not the right move there. A couple weeks ago, Michigan struggled at home versus Arkansas State. That's not a good look there either. Thank God for Maryland. Maryland went on the road and beat Virginia a couple weeks ago on the road at night against an ACC team. But of course, Michael, when Washington comes into the Big Ten for the first year, you know what happens to them?
Yeah, they lose a big game.
They lost the Apple Cup to Washington State, their biggest rival. Like, I didn't watch that game, but I just saw that they lost.
I watched a lot of the third and fourth quarter.
What did you? Anything stick out? Anything in particular with Washington other than they suck?
Not a lot of team speed. That is for sure, and a little undersized in some areas. So, they're going to have a rough go at it, I think, their first year in the Big Ten. So they've got to see if they can recruit and rebuild, because I know they were a massively senior laden team last year, and a lot of those seniors were even 5th and 6th year COVID seniors. So the stocks were left, relatively bare, and it shows.
Moving on to this past week, man. You mentioned Nebraska losing at home to Illinois. And it seems like you had a lot of high hopes for Nebraska, but I was even dialing it back. I was like, yeah, they beat Colorado pretty good, but if Colorado didn't quit in that game, I think they could have come back and beat Nebraska. Well, they lost at home to Illinois, Michael. Did you watch that game? What did you take away from that game?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch that game, so I don't have any I don't have any thoughts on it. But yeah, I mean, I was cautiously optimistic that the Cornhuskers could really take a step, and when I mean really take a step, I mean 9-3. But that's going to be a tough road for them at this point. But they can still go 7-5, 8-4, and have something to build off of. Even though they lost this disappointing game to Illinois, which would have been a big win for them, would have really given the program a well, I mean, it's all relative. Would that be a big win for Ohio State? No, but for where the Nebraska program has been for several years, to beat a ranked team, that would be a solid win. But they got more opportunities on the schedule.
Well, here's my thing, though. Illinois, I don't think they're very good. They barely beat Kansas at home. It turns out Kansas actually sucks. And Illinois got outplayed in that game, and they were kind of lucky to win. If they didn't have a defensive score in that game, they lose. So, yeah, I mean, I like Brett Bielema as a coach at Illinois. I thought he was a great hire there, but I expect more from them. I know they're undefeated now, but they need to still be better than they are. They're a team, you put them against one of the top, 7 or 8 teams in the SEC, they're probably getting boat raced off the field, man. And they're a top 6 team in the Big Ten. That's just not good. I mean, Nebraska losing to them at home kind of exposed them. I was like, oh, if Nebraska is going to be good, they need to win this game decisively. And when I say decisively, I mean by 17 to 20 points. And they losing at home to Illinois, and Illinois was a better team. They are absolutely better. They're a little faster than Nebraska. Yeah, it's not much else to be said there because, I know Illinois is not good, and now I know Nebraska is also not good. Moving on, Michael, I guess we'll just get right into it. The big game this past weekend, we had USC and Michigan in Ann Arbor. Michigan's season was on the line. They actually did what I told them to do a few weeks back, even prior to Texas, was start Alex Orji, and they played him. He's their starter moving forward. Michael, you were able to watch that game from a sports bar in Columbus. Yep. What are your thoughts on the Michigan Wolverines and the USC Trojans?
Well, USC definitely showed that they are not elite. I still believe they're a good team. They're not elite. Their defense is going to keep them from that. Do they have a terrible defense? No. But they don't have a real good defense. So, I mean, they've got a defense that is good enough to give you a chance, but it's certainly still a little bit of a liability when a Michigan team can, literally just run the ball to victory and, pass for 40 yards. So, if I was a Michigan fan, I don't know that I would feel amazing about seeing that, because it's how sustainable is that to continue to do? But one thing is for sure, at least for that game, Alex Orji gave them the ability to control the ball much more and give their defense, a breathing room and some time to rest. And it showed. Their defense looked pretty good, which I think is what they've got, is a pretty good defense.
Here's where I have problems with this game. And like everyone knows, we are Big Ten fans, second to Ohio State fans. So considering we already know that Michigan has been blown out at home by Texas, I was hopeful in my mind that USC could be another team in the Big Ten that could maybe not threaten to win a national championship, but be a legitimate top 10 team. Here's where the problem arises. The problem arises is Yes, I wanted USC to win this game for the, to make the Big Ten look better, because if a team like Texas is going in and blowing out Michigan, I expect USC to at least go in there and win. Not only do they not win in a close game, they lose the game. So what does that say about the Big Ten? Because there's an argument to be made that, USC is like the second or third best team in the Big Ten, and they're losing on the road to Michigan. So optics wise, there's more elevation for the SEC there. And like USC is kind of exposed here. They called a terrible game in the first half, especially defensively. They did not load the box against a team that cannot throw the ball. And that is not an exaggeration. Michigan absolutely cannot throw the ball at all. And then in the second half, USC got a little worn down. They couldn't stop Khalil Mullings in the clutch. Poorly called game by Lincoln Riley. For a lot of the game, he did come through offensively some, but just USC is just not it, man. Like optics wise, they just, they're just not one of the top teams in the country, man. You can't tell me that. Now, one more thing I want to add is if Michigan starts Alex Orji against Texas, that game is a lot closer. They don't win, but at least they keep it under control some. Like I think Davis Warren threw 3 interceptions. Is that right? Against Texas? Michael? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I believe that's right. He threw 3, and yeah, I agree. It would have been a closer game. I don't think the outcome would have changed, but I do think they would have kept it more respectable.
Yeah. So again, optically, because of that, it hurts the Big Ten. Now the Big Ten's looked at, oh yeah, our teams from the SEC can come in here and beat like one of the top teams in the Big Ten, but like USC, your team, like who's supposed to be one of the top in your conference, can't do it. So yeah, of course I wanted USC to win for obvious reasons, but now USC can't beat a team. They can't beat any of the top teams in the SEC. And LSU, I understand they won that game, but LSU is not one of the top teams in the SEC. They are not included in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's yet to be seen how that shakes out. With Tennessee, Missouri, and LSU. I certainly think LSU could potentially be as good as Missouri when it's all said and done. But I mean, bottom line is USC showed that they're certainly not ready for the big boys this year, but they're still a pretty good team.
Yeah, pretty good, but where we thought they were after week 1 is kind of disappointing. Just kind of disappointing. I mean, Michigan, you look at the stats here, they only threw for 32 yards. Like USC did adjust in the second half, but you knew Alex Orji couldn't throw the ball. Why do you just not have 8 in the box like every single play? I don't know. It's almost like Jim Knowles is calling their defense. Moving on, there a little bit of good news, Michael. I don't know if you saw this game, but Rutgers did beat Virginia Tech on the road. That's kind of a solid win for us. Yay.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid win, sure.
I watched that game. I was watching that game pretty close, and Rutgers probably should have lost.
All right. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. Had to edit out just a little bit. But back to the talk on Rutgers and Virginia Tech. Rutgers did do a nice little job getting that win over a at least relatively well-known ACC school. Good job, Rutgers.
Yeah, moving on a little bit there. Boston College, I know Ohio State plays Michigan State this week, and yeah, I think Michigan State was better than Boston College, but Boston College went on the road against them. That's another ACC team beating the Big Ten. That's just rough in every way possible. Oregon State, they're no good. We know they suck. I understand their front is really bad, but they bludgeoned Purdue. Like, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Purdue, that kind of goes along with the point of them getting beat as bad as they did by Notre Dame. Just I don't know. The conference at the bottom is like the worst I've ever seen it, man. LSU. I mean, give UCLA credit against LSU, though. They actually fought hard and did a lot better than I thought, but it just turns out that, LSU is really not that good either. So I don't know.
And UCLA had just gotten beat by Indiana 42-13 the week before.
I guess we need to give more respect to Indiana. Would you say
Yeah.
that's true?
Yeah.
Again, they
I
haven't
was
played anyone.
Yeah, they haven't, but I mean, hey, UCLA 42-13, that's a solid win for Indiana for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, especially on the road in Los Angeles, no doubt. It would have been really nice if Michigan State would have held on against Boston College. Like they really choked that away. And I know Michigan State's better than that. They're going to have their whole arsenal against Ohio State on Saturday. I believe Nick Marsh and like their second best receiver has already been cleared to come back. So you have those guys against Boston College. You win that game. You're now a top 25 ranked team. And this game means a little bit more for Ohio State. But looking around the conference this upcoming week, Michael, the biggest game, the two biggest games that stick out are number one, Wisconsin and USC. And the second biggest game is going to be, which is such fucking blasphemy, by the way, the times that these games are happening. But second best game is going to be Illinois and Penn State. Just two big games. Any initial thoughts on those?
Yeah, I'm going to take USC to rebound. I think they're going to out-talent Wisconsin. And I am going to take Penn State to overcome the Illini.
I don't think Penn State is a great team, but they are a good team. I think they're absolutely going to blast Illinois. I think this is the game that Illinois gets exposed. USC, I expect to win decisively. Wisconsin's not going to lose as bad as they did against Alabama. USC is not nearly as good as Alabama. But the thing is that really is like highway robbery, Michael. The thing that's the most highway robbery here is Ohio State, Michigan State got pushed back a half an hour. Georgia and Alabama were already playing at 7:30. And now Illinois and Penn State, they're also playing at 7:30. So like all of the best games are happening at the same fucking time. How does that fucking happen?
Not good scheduling because we've got every man for themselves out there. The SEC's vying for their deal, the Big Ten's vying for their deal, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no, in the NFL, you've got a commissioner and you've got a scheduling board, and so they're going to avoid, putting big things on top of each other. They're going to spread it out and make major events. College football doesn't have that. It's all kind of disparate and scattered, and so we get things like this on a regular basis.
You would think that common sense economics would be a factor here. They would like these, teams or what networks would see what other games are in store that weekend and be like, you know what, to maximize the amount of viewership on our game, maybe we should have our game at like 3:30 or noon, not competing against Georgia and Alabama, which, outside of the fan bases, like, of the teams playing, like everyone is going to be glued to that game. Nobody's going to be paying attention to the other games. And that's just a fact of the matter, man. But yeah, really, really poor there by, I guess NBC here. And then for Ohio State, Peacock. Fucking joke of a game that Ohio State's on Peacock. But I don't know, Michael. I don't have anything else for the Big Ten, man. The conference sucks and just recruiting needs to get better. Coaching needs to get better. I don't know.
That's it then. I am a bit more optimistic on the Big Ten. I wish it was a little better this year, but I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm positive on the 5-year outlook for the Big Ten. I am buying the Big Ten and not selling the Big Ten. I think it is on the rise. But yeah, that's all I've got. So we've given the final comments there, and I'm ready to wrap it up. How about you?
I'm ready to wrap it up. Just want to clarify one thing. It's not that I'm not investing in the Big Ten long term. I'm not buying them this season. I think the conference just sucks. Yeah.
But we may have the national champion, which that goes a long way to cover the sins of a conference when they have a national champion. And that would be the Ohio State Buckeyes. But we will be back to cover the Buckeyes next week. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon.